There's an ancient phrase, here's what it says: if you try to save your life, you will lose it. But if you will lose your life, meaning if you will invest your life, that's the best way to save it and to multiply it many times over. So you do me the greatest honor here by coming and letting me invest a piece of my life into your life. So here's the phrase: investing life into life has the potential of creating miracles. Investing life into life. Investing life into life creates a new baby. But investing life into life with ideas, information, association, influence can create enterprise, can create a corporation, can create a business, can create a movement, can create something that benefits many more people than just those few that might have invested in each other's lives. So this is the grand opportunity for me. It's why I'm here, really, to make another investment. And I do it gladly. And yes, air travel is a little difficult, and by the time you stand in line and pack your bags and check into the hotel and check out, traveling around the world is really hard work. For me, lecturing is easy. I call it work so that I get paid, But this is the easy part. Really, traveling is the difficult part. Trying to get somewhere. I love to be there, but getting there it takes a push, and you have to exert some good effort and positive thinking and everything else, right, to finally get where you're supposed to be. So that's the hard work. But now, getting here now and having the opportunity for a couple of days, 2-3 days, to invest in other people's lives, that's a unique opportunity. So that should be one of your goals, is to be valuable enough to invest in somebody else's life. Starting first if you're married with your children, and then invest in each other. Marriage and friendship, these associations are a chance to invest in each other. A business enterprise. Bill Bailey and I have been involved in other enterprises, but the enterprise, fortunately was successful. And we had a chance to affect a lot of other people's lives. But guess what happened over those years, and which continues to today? We continue to invest in each other. I come up with a great idea, I get on the phone, I call him. He comes up with a book he's read, he said, this is a masterpiece, you've got to read it. So we have this chance to invest each other. And while we walk the farm country of Kentucky, we invest in each other. We walk the beaches of California. He helped me design a little cassette. Here's what it's called: How to Kick the Worry Habit. And Bill Bailey helped me to put that together. We'd walk the beach, and he has a habit of grabbing your arm when you're walking and talking. So he would grab my arm until this one would get sore, and then we'd trade places so he could, grab the other arm for a while we're walking and talking. But a chance to contribute to each other. And what I share with him, he shares with others, and what he shares with me, I share with you and others around the world. That contribution of sharing with each other, being influential. Leadership, making a contribution to someone's life that no telling how far it may go from the time it starts. So I'm just delighted to be here. Thanks to all of those who've made a contribution. We're going to have lunch in just a few minutes, but let's get started on goal setting. If you're ready, let's say, I'm ready. Ready. Does anybody have 5 pages of notes already from this weekend session? Wonderful, wonderful. A man showed me notes one time that he took 23 years earlier. And he said, Mr. Rohn, I took these notes 23 years ago. Now I want you to sign them. So I finally signed his notes after 23 years. He said, I've used them to build my business and my personal life. It's just been fantastic. And he said, when I took these notes, I was 18 years old. Incredible. So make this note now. You never know who's in the audience. He was 18 years old, just a teenager. We shouldn't say just a teenager. He was a teenager. So you don't know who's out there that's going to make an impact on the world, that's going to do extraordinary things. So here's what you must always do. Always be sincere and always do your best, no matter who you talk to, because you just don't know. All those years ago, in my audience in Orange County was young Tony Robbins, 17 years old, just a teenager. And he went to work for me the next day and joined one of my offices and worked for me 3.5 years. And finally, at about age 20, he ran one of my offices. helping to promote my seminars back there. Incredible, 17. So the man who had me sign his notes was 18. About the same time I met Tony, I was doing a seminar in Los Angeles, and in my audience was a young man, 19 years old. His name was Mark Hughes. And Mark Hughes started an incredible company called Herbalife. But these were teenagers now. Mark Hughes, 19, Tony Robbins, 17, the man whose notes I signed, 18. So it's incredible. You just don't know who's there ready or when the timing is right. And I've just hoped that this weekend was the right time for you. So it's a chance to never be the same again after this weekend, only by choice. You know, by choice you can still go do the same old things. But if this weekend has touched you by what you've heard, the communication from several voices, it's been important. So jot this down. It takes more than one voice to help us to see, help us to think, help us to make decisions, help us to evaluate. It takes a variety of personalities, messages, points of view, the weight of experience. If it comes from several sources, it can be just incredibly valued when you sum total it. And I'm just happy to be part of this sum total of good voices for the weekend. Okay, let's talk about setting goals. When I first met Earl Schoaf, not long after we had met each other, he asked me, Mr. Rohn, maybe here's one of the best ways I can help you. He said, let me see your current list of goals and let's go over them and talk about them. He said, I've got the experience. And he said, let's do it. And I said to him, I don't have a list. He said, wow, you don't have a list of your goals? I said, no. He said, well, if you don't have a list of your goals, he said, I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s, which he did. And I thought, isn't that something? Then I said to him, you mean if I had a list of goals, it would change my bank balance? He said, drastically. So that got my attention. And all those years ago, I learned how to set goals. And so we want to talk about that today. And we're just going to get started before lunch, and we're going to finish after lunch when we come back. But now let's make these notes now on setting goals. The promise of the future is an awesome force. We look back for experience, but we have to look forward now for inspiration. And what gives us inspiration to get up in the morning and do our job, learn skills, develop all that we can possibly be, is the promise of the future. And it can be so powerful that it can overwhelm any adversary you might have, any difficulties you might have. Here's a key phrase: reasons make the difference in how your life works out. Reasons make the difference in your appetite and zest for taking on the challenge, doing the job, becoming successful. Mr. Schoaf said, if you have enough reasons, you can do the most incredible things. You can get through the most difficult day. You can overcome the most unbelievable challenges if you have enough reasons. And so he said to me, if you haven't got a list of your goals, Mr. Rohn, it's probably because you don't have enough reasons. He said, I'm sure since I've met you, you have enough intelligence. And he said, you have enough good health. And he said, you have, you know, all of those things working for you. But here's what you must work on now, is to have enough reasons. Looking into the future, developing reasons. Okay. So now make these notes. We're primarily affected by 5 things. Number 1 is the environment, the political environment, the social environment, the physical environment. Whatever surrounds us affects us. The city, the country, the countryside, the village, the office, the people. We're constantly affected and shaped by our reaction and decision making. A lot of it depends on the environment. And for the physical environment, we all need to pay attention to that. Make every contribution you can. It's one little small planet. Remember those first pictures from space? looking back on Earth, it looked so fragile. It looked so small. We thought, wow, so many people live there. How can that be? We must take care of it. It's, right now, it's the only planet we got. Do everything we can. My mama taught me those little things, right? Pick up, don't leave your trash. A little thing like, I remember I got a toothpick once at the cafe, and I took the little cellophane off the toothpick and I just dropped it on the floor. Mama said, no, you wouldn't do that at home. I thought, wow. She said, just put it in your pocket. And then when you get home, you put it in the trash. And somebody said, well, what difference does that make? The little cellophane on the toothpick. Here's what makes the difference, the habit. And the habit makes the difference primarily for you. Now, yes, it makes a contribution, and a little small contribution by not leaving trash. But here's what it does mostly. Give you the incredible feeling of self-worth because you have good habits. That's the deal. The habit of turning out the lights when you're finished with your hotel room. You leave the hotel room, turn out the lights. It just makes a small contribution, but what if everybody did it? I'm telling you, the energy requirements would be less. You say, well, the hotel gets the benefit. Hey, it doesn't matter to you who gets the benefit. Guess what's the greatest benefit? Being a person of unique habits. Habits that not only, right, make you perform as far as skills are concerned, but habits that make you feel good about yourself. And then sometimes we get the question, why do it? And I got the best answer to that. Why not do it? If it's so easy to do, why not do all the easy things that make a contribution? And who knows what the total contribution could be if we all did it. But even if everybody doesn't, if you do it, and if I do it, it just makes us better human beings. It makes us feel better about ourselves. And if I know you do it, it makes me feel better about you. And if you know I do it, I think it makes you feel better about me. Say, wow, this man was taught some good things when he was growing up. I did a little television series not long ago, and here was the title of the talk, Things My Mother Taught Me. It was kind of interesting. My mother taught me, always eat before you go to the banquet, so you won't appear hungry when you get there. And then you can do which is most important, and that's to socialize. So rather than go to the banquet to make up for, a meal you haven't had, and eating everything in sight, not having any time to socialize and mingle with the people, Mama said, always eat before you go to the banquet. Wow, that's really good advice. Little things she taught me. Mama said what? Sit up straight? The reason she said that is because she had a vision of me sitting up straight, shoulders back, right? Chin down, look up, look everyone in the eye. Good posture, right? Feel good about yourself. Other people feel good about you. Our parents' vision of who they wanted us to be gave us those little tips. Who was it wrote the book? Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Thank you. Please. Some countries of the world show unique respect. When I go to Mexico, I love to go to Mexico because they don't just say, hello, Jim Rohn. They say, hello, Mr. Jim Rohn. When they introduce me, they say, this is Mr. Jim Rohn. They don't say, this is Jim Rohn. It's just part of the custom. This is Mr. Jim Rohn. When I first came to the South, I remember just as a kid, and they said, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. I mean, where I was raised, we really didn't do that. But I think the more the South did it, the more it caught on, and now I'm beginning to hear that in a lot more places than just the South. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Things my mother taught me. Things we can all learn. Helps make our lives better, helps make the world better, helps make people feel good about themselves, feel good about us. Incredible. So the environment, whatever little thing you can think of that gives you pride and joy in doing to make the contribution. As small as it may seem, you make it for what it does to the environment, for the people. But here's the biggest reason, for what it does for you. I want to be the best I can possibly be at delivering the message of good words. So we keep working on our skills to be the best we possibly can. Now let me get back now to setting goals. First, we're affected by the environment. Next, we're affected by events. Some events affect us all. Some affect the world regionally, nationally, or by the state or by the community. But some events affect us all. How many of you go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis? How many of you go back that far? Go ahead, admit it. This is okay. You're among friends here. Okay, quite a few of you. The Cuban Missile Crisis, that was an event that affected the whole world. It was unbelievable. U.S. government finally wakes up one day and finds out that Khrushchev's got his missiles on the way to Cuba, and the sites are already prepared. So Kennedy calls Khrushchev and says, Nikita, you cannot put your missiles in Cuba. And John Kennedy hadn't been president very long, so this was a unique occasion for the young president. Nikita Khrushchev says, young Kennedy, this is Nikita Khrushchev. I'm from Russia, and I promise you, sir, we will put our missiles wherever we please. Now people are starting to dig their bomb shelters, right, in the backyard. Things are starting to happen. Next call. John Kennedy calls, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Khrushchev, you cannot put your missiles 90 miles from Florida. That's impossible. Mr. Khrushchev says, well, young president, I must inform you, the ships are already on the way. Wow. Now we're getting nervous. Next call. John Kennedy calls Mr. Khrushchev and says, Mr. Chairman, I promise you, sir, this is such a serious matter, we will not let your ships arrive. Whoa. Khrushchev calls Kennedy, said, Mr. Kennedy, you must think this over, because if you mess with our ships and stop them on the way, it means war. Last call. Kennedy says, Mr. Khrushchev, I must assure you, sir, and this is for your sober consideration, if it is war, Russia will cease to exist. There won't be any more Russia. Last call. Dean Rusk, Secretary of State at the time, put it, I think, very well. He said, Kennedy and Khrushchev were staring at each other, and fortunately, Khrushchev blinked and decided he better take his missiles and go back home. And so ended the missile crisis. But it was tense times. I mean, we were having exercises we went through in school, right? Getting under the desk and hiding somewhere. Those were tough times. So some events affect us all.